Self-Destruct, otherwise known as SD, is an interesting and unique tool that has allowed speedrunners of NieR Automata to enhance and exploit certain animations within the game, and it just got even more broken. Around late August 2017, Kanaris discovered a new type of movement that utilizes self-destruct to continuously repeat the same combo attack by having a spear in the light slot and a short sword in the heavy slot. His technique, he discovered, is known as Speardashing. Using SD this way was initially based off the idea of SD advancing, where, say, in a regular short sword light attack sequence, we're able to cancel 2B's animations to allow her to throw out her sword much faster than normal. For every SD plus light we do, we advance the sequence ahead by 1. This isn't of much use for outputting damage, but it's nice for advancing the short sword light combo enough to get the mini lift quickly that 2B does on her 6th light attack. Now, when I tried applying this knowledge into the current weapon attack combo used in the glitchless speedrun category, something very weird happened. Using Virtuous Contract and Virtuous Treaty at level 1, the combo we get from doing light-heavy has 2B spin both the short sword and heavy sword and slam on the ground. But if we sneak in an SD before the combo attack animation finishes, we get, well, this. But hold on, I know that animation. 2B does that if we have 2 heavy swords equipped and do the same combo attack. But wait a minute. I don't have 2 heavy swords on me. If I try the same thing with my other weapon set, where the weapon slots are reversed, all I get is the short sword and heavy sword combo attack, repeating with nothing else mixing in. This brings me to what I call SD cycling, and it gets even weirder when we upgrade our weapons to level 4. SD cycling involves canceling this combo attack in the same way as the light attack SD advances I mentioned earlier. We can gain access to attacks for weapons we don't actually have with us by using some weapon set combinations and SD. Speardashing is a form of SD cycling. Here are the timestamps for each and every weapon type combination. These are also listed in the description below. Keep in mind, these are all using level 4 weapons and may differ when using level 3s or lower, as lower level weapons have fewer attacks and will only go so far into their SD cycle animations. The same is also true when using weapons that have a fewer than normal number of attacks. I'll be using the virtuous and cruel weapons just for consistency. Also, Bare Fist doesn't seem to do anything when SD cycled, except for this cool air guitar thing 2B does, I don't know. Anyway, short swords are up first, and they're by far the most ridiculous of the bunch. By having double short swords equipped, the SD cycle will always go double short sword heavy sword, short sword spear. We're able to gain a fair amount of distance by using this SD cycle, and I'll be covering a couple of them at the end of this video. When using a short sword and heavy sword, as we had seen before, we get the short sword heavy sword, double heavy sword, and spear heavy sword attacks. By using a short sword and spear, we get the short sword spear, spear heavy sword, and double spear attacks. This one also has a fair amount of potential in our movement options. When using a short sword and fist, we gain access to the short sword fist, heavy sword fist, and spear fist attacks. However, when using the heavy sword short sword combination, we only get the short sword heavy sword animation, nothing else. The same goes for spear short sword, which is the traditional way of spear dashing. and Fist short sword. Moving on to the heavy swords, when using double heavy swords, we only get the double heavy sword animations. Again, here, the SD cycle only comprises of the weapons that we actually have with us. When using the heavy sword spear, we only get the spear heavy sword combo. The same goes for heavy sword fist. Spear heavy sword. And fist heavy sword. Moving on to spears. When using double spears, we're only able to play the double spear combo attack animation. This one also has potential for our movement options. However, when using the spear-fist combination, we can clearly see the spear-fist animation, and then at the end of that animation, when we do another SD heavy, we perform an aerial heavy attack because 2B is left mid-air at the end of the first animation. But, if we're quick enough, we can SD cycle to keep 2B on the ground and ready for the next SD heavy input. The same also applies for the fist spear combination. And finally, nothing particularly special happens with double fists, as it only makes us punch super quickly. Now, going back to the double short sword set, why is this one so special? Like I had mentioned earlier, the SD cycle we do with these weapons consists of 3 parts: the double short sword, the short sword heavy sword, and the short sword spear. SD cycling slowly through this, we can see the distance we gain from the short sword spear combo attack, just like in traditional spear dashing. This is where SD cycling gets tough. If we do a light attack into 2 SD heavies and repeat 3 SD heavy, so 3 SD heavy, 3 SD heavy, we can always play the short sword spear animation and advance through the other 2 in the SD cycle entirely. However, keeping the SD cycle on this combo attack animation is a lot harder than it looks. But, if done correctly, we're able to constantly play the short sword spear combo attack animation as if we were spear dashing, without even having to equip a spear. To my knowledge, this will only work if the short sword in our heavy slot is level 3 or 4. This fast SD cycling can be applied to any of the other before mentioned weapon set combinations, so long as that weapon combination has more than 1 combo attack in its SD cycle. However, SD cycling becomes even more difficult if I want to bounce between 2 different attacks. For example, I'll SD cycle using a short sword and spear to get a rhythm where I play its short sword spear attack, advance through the spear heavy sword attack, and play the double spear attacks to only get the farthest displacing animations to play. This should look like a light attack into 1 SD heavy, 2 SD heavy, 1 SD heavy, 2 SD heavy, repeating. This requires a lot more focus though, and keeping the timing as to not lose the rhythm on these quick animations is rather difficult, but is possible. Finally, in terms of speed, traditional speardashing is still far superior, requiring fewer inputs and is much more consistent than methods like quote-unquote spearless speardashing. Although the latter offers more freedom with which weapons we can use, having to not even go out of our way to get a spear in the first place is very nice. To my knowledge, SD cycling doesn't deal additional damage on a hit, but rather only plays the animations of these relatively powerful attacks without the requirement of getting the weapon needed in the attack. I would also like to point out that combo attacks involving a non-present weapon only deals the damage of the weapons that are physically present in the animation. So for example, doing combo attacks that involve a heavy sword won't actually deal the damage that the heavy sword would contribute if the weapon isn't present on screen. Well, that's it for me. There's still so much more to be discovered in this game, but I'll gladly take my 2 short swords and spearless speardash off into the sunset.